are representing organizations on the map. So the 5 people on the Grassroots Institute are Jim Tarbell, Michael St. John, Margaret Coster, over there, and Lillian Cartwright. Okay. So a few years ago, we've been teaching these classes in the community, and then the Institute formed, and we were trying to push more towards action and not just talking about what to do. So that's how this evolved. And the people on the committee, can the committee stand up, please? Okay, we've got Nancy and Jerry and Mr. Heil, Bill Heil, and Jim, and Judy, and Garth, and Alex, where are you?
Right here.
Okay, and Alex will be videoing today as well. So now, if anybody who knows that their organization is on the map, could you please stand up? All right. So these folks are represented by those ribbons out in the other room, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that's going to be an interactive engagement. But for now, I just wanted to welcome you all here, and we'll have some wonderful speakers. So this is Thais, who's going to introduce Keith. Here we go.
Thanks, Gary.
You can raise it up.
Oh, okay, like this.
Text board up there.
There we go.
Is this how you do it? I haven't done this in a while. There we go, got it. Okay, so Carrie and I were taking out Scotch broom together, and I noticed that, Carrie, that I had to really bend over while she was just kind of at the roots. So, and Carrie is at the roots, actually. Thank you, Carrie. So gosh, I don't know why you asked me to do this, except I love Keith. He's a new friend and a colleague of mine. We met almost a year ago at UC Davis, and I came to him to talk to him about some work that I was doing and hoping to do, and he got really interested in our community and didn't know that much about him, but a friend of mine had recommended that we talk a little bit about rural economic development. And the more I learned from Keith and how he views the world and what he's doing through UC Davis, where he's a faculty specialist in community economic development, the more excited I got about him coming here to the coast as we make this huge transition from extraction economy to looking at an economy that will support the culture of who we are, our legacy here on the coast, and where we want to go from here. So I just want a show of hands. How many of you are new in the community? Yeah. So a lot of people are new. They're coming in. They're doing really interesting work with food resourcing and social justice and housing. And I'm excited. I can feel the energy in the room, and I can feel it in the work that I do. But Keith isn't just a PhD in human and community development. He is also the product of being born in the Rust Belt to a working class family where he watched the demise of the place where he grew up because of lack of jobs. So he firsthand, and again, in the roots of his being, has really felt what that's like. And his mission, I'll let him tell you more about that, but it's really to look at how we can lift each other up and how we can support a sustainable economy that opens up our imaginations, expands our opportunities, where we're not just selling our souls to the next thing coming down the river. So without much further to say here, I want to introduce to you Dr. Keith Taylor.
everybody. I'm Keith Taylor. As Tice was saying, I'm a community economic development specialist. So I got this job, and I thought it couldn't be a better fit for me. I'm a specialist, which goes back to the extension service. So the old land grant university aspect. It's supposed to be this kind of populist. We take our university expertise outside of the ivory tower and into our communities. For me, I've had this community organizing background. Also got this background in trying to make research meaningful to the communities that we're trying to serve as well. So a big part of the work that I do is looking at community wealth building as a strategy for community economic development. So show of hands, who here thinks we have a housing problem? Oh, wow. Okay, so when I moved out here from Muncie, Indiana. We sold our 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 3-car garage. I got one of those Plum University jobs. I thought, I made it. Guess how much, can someone just put it, show of hands, whoever wants to answer this, how much did we sell our house for in Muncie, Indiana?
150.
Wait, 8, I heard 80. 87.5. Yeah. So when my wife and I came out and looked at properties, she literally wept. I said, it's better than Indiana. It's better than Indiana. We're fine. So, also, who thinks we have a problem with electricity out here and energy generation? What do you guys think is going to happen with PG&E? Huh? They're not exactly someone that people revere in their local communities. Hey, that's something we could look at. So, Jim, if you go next slide. So I'm going to be pointing to Jim. He's my my little clicker here. Yeah. So in the overview on this presentation night, I wanted to talk about these 4 areas. I wanted to really lay out the problem of how we do regular economic development. And I think that those of you that pay attention to what happens when we do economic development, this is going to speak to. A lot of us, I'm sure, have been going, oh man, why do we do things this way? And we never get an alternative put forward to us that really looks viable. Then we're going to rethink it a little bit about economic development. And then I want to talk about cooperative enterprise. I think a lot of folks talk about cooperatives, but they don't know what the cooperative business sector really looks like. So I want to give a broad scan of that. And then we'll talk about what we can do next with that. So, Jim? So when we think about community development, we oftentimes think of these idyllic communities, these farmers markets going outside, and the sort of local commerce, right? The small shop holder and this sort of thing. Okay. And then we think about job creation. In the best sense of the word, we think we're going to create these high-tech jobs, they're going to create a ton of money, and we're going to replicate San Francisco everywhere. I don't know about you guys, but when I came out here and I saw San Francisco, it's pretty cool. At the same time, going, whoa, I cannot believe people live here. Next. So what I call this form of economic development we do is smokestack chasing. And where I'm from, especially in the rural Midwest, we're going, how can we have a bang for the buck project that creates a ton of jobs and creates a lot of tax revenue? But how often does this actually pan out, Jim? And the thing is, the way we do economic development largely goes through our municipal government. So you hear people say we can't have the government get involved in our economy. It's already involved in our economy. And to the tune of about 95% of all economic development is municipal, and it's this attraction and retention approach. We're going to bring in the big factory, create a bunch of jobs, pay a lot of tax dollars, right? So in the 2012 election cycle, these guys are running, and what did they say? You had Mitt Romney talking about the job creators, and you had Barack Obama talking about the workforce. So it was all about how it is we can empower those at the top to take care of the rest of us down here. There was no conversation in here about public entrepreneurship, about civics, about engagement, and these sort of things. And I just thought, wow, this is really depressing, especially with the community organizer running, right? Next. So the way we value things in our community, where we get prosperity, where does it come from? I really challenge that in my own work. I think about if we're going to put our local tax dollars on the table and attract Amazon to our community, right? So Amazon's going to come in, build their massive warehouse. They're going to try to fight our labor unions that organize around them. They're going to fight for lower taxes along the way. It does sound like a good community partner to me, So I'm not really interested in that. Other people can do that work. That's great, fine, whatever. That's not what I'm curious about. So, sorry, this is small. I should have worked in this slide, my bad. But the claims of economic development, that's optimal. This is almost all communities around the United States do this form of economic development. 95%, according to Michael Hicks, who's a professor at Ball State University, and he gets a lot of money from the Koch brothers. So even he agrees with me on this. The claim is, too, that these are going to create high-wage jobs, right? I don't know about you, but when's the last time I saw a big project come to my community that created jobs that were career-oriented? Has anyone seen that? Yeah. Enhancing the tax base. In some of my early work around wind farms, the investor-owned wind farms will come into the community, say we're going to create $600,000 a year in tax revenue, and what they don't tell you is behind the scenes we're actually going out and trying to get a lower tax rate. There's also this claim that it's going to create opportunities for entrepreneurship, right? So now we have all these new jobs and it's going to create these spin-off businesses. But is anyone getting trained in business development? Is anyone getting trained in community organizing and working together? If anything, we kind of atomize our communities even further. And also the claim too is that the local focus is best. This is one thing that I think is really challenging. I can understand we want to make our community better, but we don't think about how it is we could pool resources with the neighboring community. And that's where we really see some impact that comes into play. So the results, really limited job creation. They're oftentimes service-oriented. This is what the research shows. This is not my opinion. Also, there's a very high social cost to how we do economic development. There's limited bang for the buck for the taxpayer. The average cost of each economic development project is $1.3 million. You think about these small communities that put their money in. What if they took that $1.3 million and said, we're going to help 3 businesses start this year, locally? That could be a really big impact. Also, oftentimes, this form of economic development is, it's at tension with environmental goals, too. Jim? I think this is a great representation of how we do economic development. So we say, we're going to create these high-wage jobs, it's going to be highly technical, and they're going to pay really well, and baseball stadium. Wait, so I'm going to go sling soda and popcorn, and I'm going to make a high-wage job. What are you talking about? Along the way, they then want to have tax breaks in order to build this, and those tax breaks go over a long period of time. So these projects, while they look impressive, don't really result in that economic development spillover effect we're looking for. So I like to talk about economic development with my wife. My wife and I were from Central Illinois. She has to hear me talk about this all the time. We were born and raised hearing about economic development. In my community, we had projects like Future Gen. Does anyone remember that in the early 2000s? So it was a big carbon capture project that Obama was promoting along with Dick Durbin. It didn't go anywhere, but our community put all of their resources into it, thinking we're going to have this project, it's going to be the future of energy. It didn't go anywhere. Next. So I have these pictures up here. My hometown is the hometown of the bagel. Yeah, don't tell New York City that. Yeah. So I remember growing up, 1986, we landed the bagel factory. Linder's Bagel was going to put that factory in, and we're going to create all these jobs. So we created over 500 jobs, and we loved them so much that we created Bagel Fest. So now we get this big thing happening in July. It's really hot. I don't know about you, but in the middle of July in the Midwest, it's humid. I don't want to eat a lot of bagels. But that's what I was raised on. We have all these country music acts coming in, and we're getting bigger and bigger acts now. The thing is, even though Bagel Fest is growing bigger, the bagel factory went from 500 jobs to 50 jobs. But hey, we landed the bagel factory, we're going to celebrate it. So what this is getting at is we have all these tools in our economic development toolbox, but we're only grabbing at a couple of them. We have all these amazing ideas, and where are they coming into play? Why aren't we grabbing those tools and putting them to use? So folks would call this consensus capitalism, right? This has a lot of its roots back to the New Deal era. And the idea was these guys screwed up big time. But you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to give them another chance. They got the money, so we're going to have them create the jobs. Thank you for creating the jobs, right? This is happening here. And they're going to turn it all around. So we had this amazing recovery in the New Deal era. But then what happened shortly after World War II? These guys started to change and turn away from all of our labor laws. They started to peel back all of the social contract that they were supposedly signed off on, right? So you can't really trust this system either. How do you elevate the folks in the background so they compete with these folks here and keep them in check? Thanks. And what do we see what's going on right now in our economy? There's a whole bunch of automation that's occurring. So we can talk about job creation all we want, but what happens when we move toward a jobless economy? That's something that's really frightening. I know folks talk about a minimum basic income, but what I like to say to my friends about this is, right, so in the United States, we're gonna tax the rich and we're gonna give a bunch of unemployed folks money. That's really gonna work out in our public policy in the United States, right? I like the idea, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it's feasible. And in my hometown too, part of what got me politicized was I worked at Walmart right out of high school. And so I was confronted with what the future of the economy looked like. It was not a fun place to work. And the whole time I'm there, all these small local businesses are closing down along the way. But we subsidize Walmart to come into these communities. Now, we're not subsidizing Walmart anymore because they've saturated our communities. Now these guys are coming in, Amazon. So we're replicating this whole process all over again. Walmart came in, destroyed our earlier businesses. Now Amazon's coming in, destroying Walmart. Now, funny thing is, I think it was 3 years ago, the CEO of Walmart was at, I think, a Davos forum, and they asked, what's the problem with the economy? And he said, you know, Amazon's killing all these small businesses. So as Thais noted, I'm from a community that's in decline, Mattoon, Illinois. And these rural communities all over are facing this, where our young folks don't have an opportunity. They just need a job. They need something to keep themselves occupied. But more than that, they need to figure out how it is they can make their community better. And I don't think we're giving folks those tools. So what do we do then? We kind of make this pivot where we say, oh, you know, things are broken. Here's the new economy, right? So to me, this is how I see the new economy. Oh, you're drunk at a bar, have a perfect stranger pick you up. Oh, that's a great idea. What's another one? Oh, you've got a spare room in your house, let a perfect stranger come and crash at your place, right? These are things that are not attractive to me in the slightest. But what it's forcing us to do is to take our scarce resources, the very last couple of items we have in our lives, and commodify them. Do you get a voice in these companies? Do you get an ownership stake? Right? You get nothing. Instead, Airbnb sets the terms for what you can do with your property. Uber says, thank you for your car, we're not going to compensate you for that. Right? So this is what the future of the economy is supposed to look like, and I find it not inspiring in the slightest. So this is just taking the old system and, well, I guess what is it? New wine, old bottles, whatever. But it's kind of repurposing the old system and the logic of it. We're still beholden to someone else. And I'm tired of it. I grew up in this. Last year actually, I turned 41. And before I moved out here, I was still the young guy in my rural community. I'm going, oh my God, where are we gonna make it where the young folks can step up and have a voice here, right? You know, we need to have it where more people have a seat at the table, they can get involved in the local community, and they actually have real levers of power. But if we keep on going through that same system, we're gonna find the same roadblocks that exist in the past. So in terms of what I think about when we're looking at economic development, here's what I think are the questions we wanna ask. How to best use our public dollars, right? Why are we gonna give it to Amazon when Jeff Bezos is worth $160 billion? He has a rocket company. You know, can you maybe get rid of the rocket company and pay for your own business? I also want to have empowering jobs and equity. So it's not so much about having a job. You know, there's always this whole thing from where I'm from, oh, this person got a job at McDonald's, why doesn't he just enjoy it? Right, yeah. Because the guy at McDonald's really wants to give him some power, you know. Also, I'm thinking about how it is we can have durable, resilient institutions along the way. You know, you bring in Walmart, and now they're being outcompeted by Amazon. They go away. Well, guess what? Both those firms just destroyed my local grocery store. That's not resiliency. Also, I want to complement local public goods. I want institutions that are going to fight for things like mass transit, better housing, better water, clean energy, and these sort of things. A lot of these companies, they don't give a damn about this. And also I want to cultivate public entrepreneurs. I want people that can actually be empowered to have a voice in their local community. So how do we get together, right? There's a number of techniques and tactics, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide this slide deck to y'all so you can have access to this. But I've got about the next 7 slides I'm going to gloss over. It's from the Democracy Collaborative, and it's about various approaches to economic development. I want to focus on cooperatives. So Jim, if we can get to the lion slide. And next one. Next. 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 Now, trust me, those are good slides, but you'll have access to them, and it's online at the Democracy Collaborative anyway. So how do we do all this, right? I'm here saying, here's what's wrong, and if you don't know any better, you're going, well, thanks, Keith, now you really bum me the hell out. What can we do? Well, there's actually this sleeping giant that's out there called the American cooperative sector. Jim? So just to lay this out, in terms of globally, what the cooperative sector looks like, over 1 billion people are co-op members, 150 countries, generating 100 million jobs. Jim, next slide. So show of hands, who's a member of REI? Your co-op members. Who's a member of a credit union? Your co-op member. Who likes to go to the Ukiah Food Cooperative? Okay, your co-op members. Who goes to Ace Hardware? Okay, so that's an independent store that's a purchasing cooperative. So instead of franchise owning Ace, Ace owns the purchasing cooperative. So just to give you a little bit of an outline here, there's 65,000 cooperatives in the United States. Farmer cooperatives produce 80% of the U.S. milk supply, really impressive system. And in terms of, we're talking about PG&E, 42 million Americans own the grid in the United States. So touch base on that here in a little bit. But total, 110 million Americans are a member of at least one cooperative, and on average, each one of those Americans has 3 cooperative memberships. Next. So I don't know why it's off kilter here, but cooperatives are predicated in the 7 cooperative principles. That's the design. If you look up on the International Cooperative Alliance website, it has these principles ascribed to it of democracy, participation, sharing of the profit, and these sort of things. Also, what they're supposed to do is member education along the way. So, you get a Whole Foods in your community, that's great, you've got Whole Foods, and they'll talk about having a teaching kitchen. Well, they might teach you how to pickle asparagus or something like that. But your food cooperative is also going to teach you how to do governance. They're going to teach you how to run for the board of your co-op and how to manage over that system. Jim? Next. So just to give you an idea of where the cooperatives are in the United States, this is a map of the 65,000 of them. I don't want you to think that the Mountain West has limited cooperatives. There's just not as many people out there. Next. So these are brands that you might have recognized. Land O'Lakes, Equal Exchange. Carpet One is a $10 billion purchasing cooperative. You might have seen Carpet One on the hot side of the highway. You only go there every 15 years if you're a homeowner, because how often do you need title? But it's a really impressive purchasing cooperative that has a number of home goods within it, including bicycles. So, next. So again, here's a number of other brands. Highly recommend, if you guys ever try any really good coffee, Pachamama is the one to go for it. And then just this last week, we were hosting the folks from Organic Valley. That's one heck of a dairy cooperative. You should check out their story. And also look at their marketing for their Save the Bros campaign. It's about their protein shakes. It's really good. Next. So do it best. This is a purchasing cooperative, right? So what I want to do is I want to give you some examples here of how these cooperatives can be applied to economic development in your local community. So folks here, who here owns a small business? Okay. Anyone a member of a purchasing cooperative? Okay. So just someone randomly tell me the kind of businesses you run. I'm curious. Shout it out.
Solar installation.
Solar installation. So there is a purchasing cooperative for that. Next.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing. There is 7 Roots. It is a consultancy that does do marketing. And it's a worker cooperative. So it's to say there's all of these purchasing cooperatives in the United States. There's roughly 1,500 of them. And a lot of our small businesses do not know they're out there. And the beauty of that is, it's hard to start a small business. But if you start your small business and connect it to a purchasing cooperative, you have economies of scale, you have technical expertise, some really amazing things.
I wanted to point out that many of the farms in the area, we have a local purchasing cooperative, the Mendo Lake Food Hub, through North Coast Opportunity.
want to hear more about that.
It's huge.
Great.
It could be so helpful.
Jim, next. Food cooperatives. This is Common Ground Food Cooperative. When I was a graduate student, 2008, I did a class, and for my class project, I went and sat in the basement of a church. We had this hippy-dippy little food cooperative. It was doing 400 grand per year, and I thought, well, this place is pretty neat. It seems like the products are pretty price competitive. I got to meet the general manager, Jacqueline Hanna, and she said, Keith, you really seem to like this co-op thing. We're actually getting ready to expand. Can you get involved in our member loan campaign? I'm like, oh, sure. What is that? Well, we need to raise $250,000 in loans from our members. You're going to call them during dinner and ask them for $25,000 loans. We got $250,000. We leveraged that to get $1 million in bank loans. And we had for 8 years the fastest growing food cooperative in the United States. This went from a $400,000 a year food cooperative to an $8 million a year food cooperative. It was pretty remarkable. And it was pin-up demand in the community, obviously, but still, great story. Next. And in terms of, what kind of an economic impact do these cooperatives have, there are some studies out there about them. Unfortunately, a lot of them are case studies or one-offs. But anytime these studies come out, they seem to show cooperatives have an enhanced economic development multiplier. So this will be in the slide deck for anyone that wants a copy. Next, Jim. This is one of my favorite credit unions. It looks really boring. It's North Carolina State Employee Credit Union. Their general manager, CEO, who recently retired, he said that their motto is "Bring us your mama." And he's a North Carolina guy, so I guess that has a meaning. I don't know. But this particular credit union is in every county in the state. It's the second largest credit union. What they do is everyone is required to pay $1 per month to be a member. The reason why is they put it into a community fund, and it ends up generating $1.2 million per year, per month, to go to community groups. So you go up to one of the hospitals there, forget which one. It's the North Carolina State Employee Credit Union Breast Cancer Ward. It's pretty cool. The other thing that they do is they have two programs that I'm really impressed with. So, Payday Lending. Anyone a fan of Payday Lending? Oh, that's weird. So, you kind of look at a state like California and go, what's up, Democrats? Why aren't you getting rid of Payday Lending? So obviously that lobby is very powerful. What they did here is they created a program to outcompete the payday lenders. So they're taking them on the market, which is really cool. You go in there, you're a borrower, and you say, kick me in the pants, give me a payday loan, right? Your credit union says, we love you, we're watching out for you, here's how the program works, your interest goes into a savings account. Right? And after a set amount of time, we've broken the habit of you going to payday lenders. And you being a borrower go, yeah, whatever, just give me my loan. You walk out, you come back again, the second time, you do it all over again, dog and pony show. About the fifth time you come back and they say, do you really want a loan? You have $500 in savings, right? All of a sudden it kind of shocks you because you've never had savings in your life. They've moved about 80,000 people off of payday lending in North Carolina. Where are credit unions in California? Right? What if we did that here? Next, Jim. These guys. What are they doing? So, I'm hearing some grumbles. So, when we're looking at what to do at PG&E, a lot of folks are saying, who's going to buy them, right? $30 billion in bankruptcy. They have rural maintenance that hasn't been upkept. It's a really nasty situation. Next, Jim. But we do have an example. The electric cooperatives. In 1935, the Rural Electrification Act was passed by Congress. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, what he saw was the need to electrify the rural countryside. He went to the investor-owns and said, here's this big map. We need you guys to go out there and bring electricity. And they said, ooh, it doesn't work with our business model. I said, well, what's your business model? We need about 5 to 12% profit margin. Just for comparison, Walmart does about a 4% profit margin. Okay? So your electric utility is regulated under the government and allowed to get a 5 to 12% profit margin. The electric cooperatives then were formed through Congress. They were low interest loans that were paid back by the taxpayers, by the ratepayers, at a profit to the taxpayers. Pretty good setup. We don't talk about this in public policy as being an option. Next one, Jim. So this is to show you where the electric cooperatives are in the United States. Now, they cover anywhere, I've heard 56% of the land mass to 70% of the land mass, but 42 million Americans own this grid, and they govern it. And they govern it in multiple levels. You have your local electric cooperative, you have second-tier cooperatives that pool the purchasing power. If you call on a Saturday at midnight, someone picks up the phone. Why? They have a call center co-op that they all pool into. So these electric cooperatives, they do not make as much profit as the investor owns, but they have far more services. In South Carolina, where I was just at, they do a program called Help My Home. If they see that your bill is $800 a month and you're in a trailer, they will come and knock on your door, and they'll say, what's going on? You might have your stove open with a fan to heat your trailer. This is a story I heard over and over again. And what they'll do is they'll say, we're gonna take out a loan on your behalf, you're gonna pay it in your monthly utility bill, but the savings you're gonna have, it's gonna look like less, right? So they come in, they insulate the trailer, they put in a furnace, they close your stove. Your bill now is $200 a month with a $100 a month loan. So you go from $800 a month to $300 a month. Pretty great. PG&E doesn't do that. Next. So this is also another slide that shows the economic impact of these electric cooperatives. Why aren't we talking about this in California? Next. I have a book coming out. It's in June. It's about electric cooperatives. It's about wind energy. Yay! Don't buy it on Amazon. Next. And then when we're talking about housing, in Davis, California, we have Dos Pinos Housing Cooperative. They have 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units. It cost $1,200 a month for a 3-bedroom unit in Davis. Right? Because what they did is they built it in 1986, and it's been kept to the CPI, not to the inflation rates with housing. Right? So right now we rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $2,000. It's a little much. So we're on the waiting list for Dos Pinos. It has a 4-year waiting list to get in, and it takes a while. But what if, instead of for affordable housing, where we go, hey landlord, here's a bunch of subsidies to let someone who's in poverty live there, and then when the economy crashes and the subsidy goes away, the landlord says, get out, poor person, right? What if instead the affordable subsidies went into housing cooperatives? Again, it was only in 2015 California passed one of the best limited equity housing cooperative laws in the nation, and no one is developing limited equity housing cooperatives in California. So you guys can help out with that. Next. And then this is a picture from Yes Magazine in Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's a neighborhood where the residents said, this part of our commercial district is probably going to gentrify. How can we control for that? So the residents came together and formed the Commercial Real Estate Cooperative. And they collectively bought out 3 pieces of property. And what they're doing is they're allowing local businesses and local cooperatives to come in and start up new businesses in these spaces. And they can say, on this unit, we want to make a profit. On this one, we're willing to take a loss. We want to see these new businesses start up. Next slide. So, what can we do? How can we do this community economic development approach, right? One of the easiest things we can do is whenever we give a big subsidy to someone from out of town coming in, we can say, sign a contract, tell us that you're actually going to do what you say you're going to do, and if not, give us the money back. Anyone following the whole Foxconn debacle in Wisconsin? Yeah. What do you know about that?
It's not good.
What did they promise?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but a lot of jobs.
Can you tell us what it is?
So Foxconn is the manufacturer that makes a lot of Apple products. The big thing there was, how do you get this high-tech manufacturer into the United States? So the governor then, Scott Walker, said we're going to give about $15 billion in subsidies. At the state level in Wisconsin, that's a lot of money. And Foxconn claimed they're going to create, I believe it was over 2,000 jobs. It's looking more like it's going to be about 300 jobs. They still want their subsidies, though. So we need to write in clawbacks to these various provisions. We also need to commit to engaging with community wealth building. So instead of going out and saying, we're just going to do attraction and retention, what we need to do is we need to sit down and we need to really look at the very challenging work of developing our local enterprise. And how do we do that? The good thing is y'all aren't alone. You can reach out to the American cooperative sector. There's tons of players that are out there. And I'm trying to bring them out to this region as well. And then also we need to identify our local needs, but collaborate in a regional setting. It's really challenging with how expensive it is out here to develop new housing. But imagine if instead of the city of Fort Bragg doing housing, Mendocino doing housing, what if you pulled together, right? And you put it into a centralized system, and you had local voice, advisory councils and this sort of thing. But you're able to get those new economies of scale, and you have a regional approach. There's a lot you can do in this manner. Also, work with supportive institutions. Next, Jim. So cooperatives are everywhere, right? You guys are members of credit unions. REI, you're members of REI. You go to your local food cooperative. Talk to the folks there, engage them, say you want them involved. If they say we can't do this because we're constrained at the local level, ask them about their associations. Ask them about their lending partners, who got them there. There's tons of resources that are out there. And talk to me. I can help you understand the system. Some folks don't want to do the work. So it's a matter of calling them out a little bit. Jim, next. Also, engage your local municipal government, right? Tell them to stop spending money on these big projects. Tell them to start putting it into local small business development. And here's a number of resources that I encourage you all to look at. But again, don't stop here. There's tons of other great things that are online. And talk to me. If you're local and you're like, I don't know Keith's number, contact Jim, contact Carrie, contact Dice. I'm here to help. That's my role as a cooperative development specialist. So anyway, thank you very much, and I appreciate y'all having me.
Hello. How nice to have so many people here. Fantastic.